on our previous advisory council, and some of this is going to. So how do we do partnerships? Well, one of the big objectives was to make sure you develop first strong partnerships. And one of our selling points was this idea that we've moved beyond just NC State to include Auburn and University of Georgia in the management and implementation of the Southern IPM program. We used to be the exception of being the one institution center of the four, and now it's working the other way. We are the only regional IPM center that has 3 institutions in the partnership, and the Northeast and the West are both. No, I take that back. The West now has 3 partners. The Northeast has 1, and the North Central has 2. We have a regulatory information network that I'm going to talk about in more detail. We have, of course, this advisory council and the steering committee. Again, we'll talk in more detail, but they're a key. You talk about building an information network of people in the region that know about IPM and know when important things come along. The advisory council and steering committee, of course, are key parts of that. And then we also have working groups, which mostly come through our funding stream. I'll explain that in a bit. So starting off with the regulatory information network, this is a special component of the center which mainly deals with pesticide and pesticide-related issues. As you all know, part of EPA's job is to manage registrations and use of pesticides across the country. So they're almost constantly looking at particular pesticides, say old pesticides, to see are they safe enough, are they still effective, is their registration justified, as well as new pesticides, the same questions. What's nice about IPM centers, and one of the things we hang our hat on, is that these days, when EPA makes these decisions, at least some of the time, they give us a call and say, hey, you have a contact in the field, in the real world, so to speak. How important would it be what would happen if we removed the registration of pesticide X? Would that cause any difficulty, or would nobody notice? So we get those questions in. We pass them to these 4 people on the slide. The only one I didn't have a picture from was Mark Matoka, who in turn will call up the researcher or extension specialist in the crop and get real information back and get it back to the EPA. The most recent one, and I forget which example it was a question almost exactly like what I asked. We're contemplating removing product X from the market. How would it affect, I think it was sweet potato growers? And the answer that came back was, well, you know what, none of us use that anymore. Wouldn't affect us much at all. I don't know if the decision's been made, but if they make that decision, now we feel like we've had some input. And we also feel like the sweet potato growers won't be damaged unduly by that. At other times, they've had just the opposite answer. The answer might come back, this is a key pesticide. It's the only one we've got against this pest. If you remove it, it's going to lead to all kind of other issues like resistance on other pests, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the kind of information that gets exchanged. They also work on documents called crop profiles and pest management strategic plans. Not going to spend a lot of time on that now, except to note that we have hundreds of crop profiles that have been developed since the 1990s, and most of them are out of date. And this group of 4 people is working at updating important crop profiles for the southern region at the rate of about 12 per year. I think we're going to be the only region that's going to have a good, pretty much updated list of crop profiles here shortly. Now this last bullet point, previously led by Steve Toth, many of you know Steve. He, as of a couple of weeks ago, has retired, and the coordination of this group has been more or less voluntarily provided by Mike Weaver. My plan is, and written into our budget, is that we're going to hire an assistant. A large part of that person's job will be to coordinate and facilitate this network to work on crop profiles, to help just solidify our regulatory information network.